Thank you for waiting.
It's totally fine. So what's going on?
Well, a lot is going on. July 3rd happened. Violence, protesters, riots, blood being split left and right, people getting hurt, madness.
That's true. It was total chaos.
And then now I'm hearing from high command that our government is, going through some sort of restructure. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm worried about the future, excited for the new changes, but nervous same time.
I get that. A lot of stuff that's going on. How much have you been told? Do you want us to run you through what's going on
I
and
mean,
why?
sure, sure. I mean, I've been told bits and pieces and bobs of what's been taking place.
Mhm.
I don't have the full story, so I would love to hear your perspective.
Sure. We'll start from the very beginning. So go back in time about 2.5 weeks ago after Soze versus the state.
Oh yeah, how could I
We had a
forget?
conversation with some of the other judges, and we determined that there was quite a few holes in the Constitution that needed to be filled, and that Soze did actually have quite a few valid complaints in his actual court case with regards to um, the jurisdictional lines, with regards to the implementation of legislation, with regards to the way that the authority has actually been being wielded or welded or whatever you want to term you want to use
Right,
by the
use.
mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Used or it was there was some issues that needed to be resolved, and so Norman and I were actually ordered by Crane to fix those holes and to create proper constitutional amendments and case law that would plug them all up. And part of that included creating new jurisdictions. And while we were writing up our decision and going through the documentation and getting everything ready, we were having some internal discussions about the way the government currently was and how council was. And we determined that it might be necessary for this legislation to be more than, or this precedent that was being set to be more than it was, or what we had intended to when we wrote out our decision in the first place. And so we started rewriting and going through a lot of internal discussion about the Constitution and how it should look and how people's rights should be interpreted and how everything was currently written up. And we determined that some serious changes needed to happen. And so we were actually in the process of figuring all this out and writing up a bunch of documents. And we actually just had a large meeting the day when the July 3rd incident happened. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
we got a call from Soze that day, and he basically said that he could get us in contact with the leaders of the attempted coup. And he wanted us to have a chat with them and see if we could put a stop to the uprising, see if we could talk some sense into them.
Okay.
So we sat down with the leaders of the coup and all the people that were involved, some members of the
Holy fuck, a
council,
coup! I
just
can't believe I'm hearing
judiciary,
that right now.
and Soze, and we explained to them the issues that we had noticed in the past and what our plan was for the future. And they decided that the plan that we were implementing was good enough for them to halt their reign of terror. So we essentially were able to convince them to just leave and piss off and do their own thing. And that was great. So fast forward to now, we're still going through the legislation changes and the constitution and updating everything. I don't know how much of the changes have been communicated to you. If you want, I can go through
I've heard
them from
about
start to beginning.
I mean Soze's ran my ear off a lot about this kind of stuff. So I've heard it from him, and I've heard it from high command as far as like the north and the south, Blaine County, Los Angeles County.
Yeah, but hearing it from Soze is not the same thing as hearing what's actually happening.
Well, I would love to hear it. Continue then.
All right. So we're going to be creating a new constitution, one that is a little bit more representative and
Okay,
protective of the
this is good.
citizens
This
in the
is good.
state. So
First
we
good
are
step.
currently going through and revising the constitution. And once we're done, it is going to be signed by the state, and it is going to be an immutable document that cannot be changed. The intention of this is to provide a scaffolding and structure that we can base all of our governmental changes off of.
So that's
That
your
being said, it's
foundation.
not, yes, it's our foundation. It's not supposed to be an all encompassing document. Rather, it's supposed to be a scaffolding that we can use to build a more permanent and functional form of governance for everyone. So
At the
one of
same
the
time, kind of working to enshrine people's basic human rights, and kind of lay out some of these and answer some of these questions that have been raised previously on a foundational level, right?
right, that's correct.
And you don't think amendments are good to the Constitution?
Well, we're trying a new style here because while we could make amendments to the Constitution, we would like to have a more permanent document that cannot be amended. Um, that doesn't have as much in it. Rather, it enshrines your basic rights as a human being, such as the right to assemble, the right to free speech, the right to health, the right to privacy, the right to a fair trial and due process, the right to petition, the right to information, the right to healthcare, free housing, and the right to bear arms. You know, basic things like that that we
Right.
can use to create foundational legislation and expand on people and the way that they live in the state, but without being overly wordy, essentially.
Right, or overbearing.
Where every law in the future is going to answer to those basic fundamental rights that are established.
That's correct.
And if it doesn't pass that smell test, then it's not going to fly, right?
Right, it's not constitutional.
That's right,
Right.
yes. So this is going to be the ruler by which we measure laws going forward, if that makes sense. It also enshrines the legislative authorities in the state and how they function with each other, which is probably where you heard about the two states. It's not a two-state solution, as some people called it. It's two counties within a state.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They still answer to the states.
Correct.
You know, they still fall under state law. They're not in different countries with completely different laws or anything like that. But each county is going to have the right to govern itself for the most part with regards to civil law, with regards to the departments that they set up within themselves, with the way that they generate funding, with their civics, businesses, environmental running, and even with minor criminal charges, they can run that all themselves to how they deem fit.
So
And
two
if-
local governments. Now, can that local government have its own DOJ or no? Or will that be on the state level?
So we currently have it defined as the following. There's the Department of Justice, which has legislative authority over all legal and judicial matters within San Andreas. So if there was to be another judiciary created within these counties, I don't know if we would necessarily be opposed to it, but they would still be underneath us. So if they made a decision and it was to be appealed, it would go out to us regardless. So we're not necessarily the state incarnate. Rather, we are the body that is set aside by the state to legislate and review issues that people might have with each other, right?